So I'm very pleased to say that the guitarist, singer, songer and founder of Chic, Mr. Nile Rodgers, joins us live now from New York. And the music executive, Merck Mercuriadis, also joins us, and he's the founder of Hypnosis Songs Fund. So welcome you both. But what I have to say,
Morning,
it is
Esther.
an unusual period in time when you find musicians and artists joining together with politicians, not to put out a charity record, but to actually get a fair pay for music artists. Over 150 artists wrote to the Prime Minister and 41 MPs have. So, Merck, do you want to tell us what this is all about? Explain to everybody so we understand the finer detail of why people aren't getting paid properly.
Well, I think that, we're in a position now in the streaming environment where streaming has come along over the past 5 years and saved the music business. The music business was riddled with people, basically consuming music illegally via illegal downloading between 2001 and 2016. It almost destroyed the business. That technology has then evolved into streaming, and streaming has now made it more convenient for people to pay for music again. And the record companies have incredible amounts of money coming into them as we've gone from 30 million paid subscribers only 3 years ago to 450 million paid today. But they are not sharing that money fairly and equitably with the artists and with the songwriters that contribute these incredible songs that are a part of our culture. So both Niall and I are very grateful to the DCMS committee that is holding these hearings in UK Parliament, and it's incredible to us that it's taken politicians, and as you say, Esther, as many as 41 to stand up and fight for the songwriter and the artist in what is such an important cultural art form that's a part of our everyday lives.
And explain how little people are getting what they would ordinarily have got if it had been played out on radio or TV, or people buying an album or CD, and what they're now getting now that it's being streamed.
So a pound of income from streaming, you've got approximately 30p going to the streaming service, which we think eventually can be challenged and become 27p or 25p. But we don't think that that's really the material point. We think that people like Spotify and Apple are doing an incredible service on behalf of the music industry and delivering this music to their constituencies. But ultimately, what really is material is what happens to the other 70p. And currently, out of the other 70p, you've got about 58.5 of it going to the record company. They're paying most artists on a sale rather than paying them on a license. So they're clearing about 50p out of every pound, and then that leaves about 11.5p to be split amongst 4 or 5 songwriters and their publishing companies. So the songwriters are getting fractions of a penny on every pound. The artist isn't doing that great, and the record companies are walking away with almost half of every pound. And this is what needs to be changed. And we're really pleased that the DCMS is investigating this and looking at it very closely to see what they can do to help both the artists and the songwriting community.
Niles, talking of a fraction of a penny in every pound. You, somebody who's been writing music, and to us in this studio here, a musical god, whether it is Chic, whether it's what you've done with David Bowie, whether it's what you've done with Diana Ross, Daft Punk, you name it, you've been there writing these songs. So tell us from your stance what it means to writers, creators, performers.
Okay, let me give you an example. Instead of trying to just only talk about numbers, I'm going to just give you a real world example, and I think this will be a lot easier to follow. So if you take an artist like David Bowie, who is arguably one of the most important, one of the most relevant artists that's ever existed, well, before I did Let's Dance with Bowie, he never really had a big record. However, his impact on the business was phenomenal. He was still able to eke out, I won't even say eke out, have a rather good living. If you only sold a certain amount, you still were getting paid uh, the equitable remuneration, which everybody talks about all the time, in that case was something that we could live with, because the fact is that there was only one method to be paid. You sold a record, you got paid. And an artist like David Bowie and many, many others, myself included, we were able to make a decent living um, without having to be big stars. And what was great about that is that those artists, those underground artists, were able to generate ideas, and they were able to do things that would spark all sorts of, what should I say, emotion, inspiration for people who were the big stars. You can see we're one big family that's all connected. And, if the labels paid us for a license instead of a sale, like the old days, it actually was a sale. Many artists would sell 200,000 or 300,000 records. And, even if you feel like the deals were not the best deals they could make, it still was something that felt fair. It's always been somewhat of a paramountcy, where we go into this business that we love, and somebody above us tells us what the conditions are. We have nothing to say about that, except when we're negotiating our deals. And Bowie would be a great example. I mean, I could think of so many. Bowie, Diana Ross, you know, everyone you just mentioned, everybody I have on my wall here, they all started out as underground people. Does that make sense to you? I hope I didn't go.
It makes sense to us here, and I think we know whether it's performers or artists, and this last year plus under COVID has really, really been difficult, because they've only had streaming. Some of them have got next to nothing, couldn't even pay the rent, because they haven't been able to go and do events which they would have been paid for. So this whole issue seems to have been exacerbated by COVID. Nile, I think you've just had your first gig, is it, in 18 months? You were doing it till late last night. So explain that as well. People don't understand that these people have had nothing to live on, some of these artists, for the last year plus.
It's important to put that in the context as well, Esther, of we say that music is uncorrelated, in the sense that people are always consuming music, whether they're living their best life, they're doing it to a soundtrack of music equally well. If they're experiencing the challenges that we've experienced over the past 17 or 18 months, they're taking comfort and they're escaping with music. And you're absolutely right. In this period of time, it's been a very, very difficult period for songwriters and for artists, but it's been an incredible success for the record companies, because people have consumed more music and they've gone searching for comfort and escape in these great songs that people like Nile and others have written. So the record companies are having a terrific time of it, whereas the songwriting community and the artists are having a very, very difficult time of it, because the money is not being shared fairly and equitably.
Our side of the water, as it were, look, you've got likes of Paul McCartney, Gary Barlow, Kate Bush, all coming out saying this isn't fair, these people aren't getting paid.
I mean, it isn't fair. It isn't fair at all. And what I'm interested in is, what can government actually do? Because we're dealing with these labels, these companies, they're global. Is it about more transparent? Can the UK pass a law to make a difference for, say, Sony? But what if America hasn't got that law passed? How does it work? What is the thing that governments have to do? I know, Niall, you've talked about just more transparency. If people just knew, shame them, that how much the labels take and not the writers, that in itself would be refreshing to just know what was going on.
I think that the way
Sorry, go on.
The way these things always happens is one domino falls at a time. I think the UK has become the shining example of examining this situation. And if in fact they passed the law that was fair and equitable and everybody saw it, I always say, and I feel this deep in my heart, and maybe I'm naive, but the same people who are the record company owners, they're my friends. I go to their birthday parties and their kids, bar mitzvahs and what have you. And I think that if, in fact, they could do it better or decided to do it better because they had no choice, they wouldn't mind it at all. They know it's wrong. The first day I got into the record business, somebody sat me down and I got my advance whenever I got my advance. And I paid back my advance because my first record was such a massive hit. And I said to myself, I don't understand why now I've paid it off, I still don't own this. It's the only business where you pay off the mortgage and they still own the house. I was like, this just doesn't make sense. But at that time, we felt that we loved it, we wanted to be in it, and those were the rules. Now, they don't have things like breakage and returns and what have you. This is a system that's really, really clean, finally. And now is the time, because the amount of money that they make is so extraordinarily high compared to the percentages that they used to make. Now is the time for them to act.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.